Welcome back to Something Private, a podcast for Southeast Asian women by Southeast Asian women, exploring conversations around health, the self, community, and love. My name is Nicole, and I am your producer and host. So one thing we set out to do this season on Something Private is to feature stories from across Southeast Asia a little more. There are so many amazing individuals in our part of the world doing really interesting and amazing things that deserve to be in the spotlight. One of these individuals is Malaysian celebrity chef Ili Sulaiman. So I was first introduced to Ili by a friend who watches her videos on the Asian Food Network and proceeded to stalk her on Instagram. Immediately, older sister vibes. Ili is super fun, warm, extremely cute, and she was very candid and open about some of the conditions that many women struggle in silence with. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS for short, as well as endometriosis. Now, if it's your first time hearing about it, these are actually women's health conditions that are extremely common, but also extremely underdiagnosed because of a variety of reasons. Many of times, women suffering from these conditions are brushed off as having emotional outbursts, or they simply think that it's not painful enough to seek help. So in this episode, Ili and I discuss her conditions, PCOS and endometriosis, her journey as a celebrity chef, and how you can identify whether these are some of the conditions that you might be experiencing as well.
Hi, I'm Ili Sulaiman. I am based in Kuala Lumpur. I am 36 years old and I am a food host on Asian Food Network, and I am also a foodpreneur here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I run Dish by Ili, which is a platform sharing recipes and so on and so forth, and also Ili Pot steamboat and grill delivery service. I could say a blanket that I've always been very passionate about food. Food has always been kind of the constant thing that makes me happy. So from very little, my very, very first memories of mine were always in the kitchen or eating something, or even on my travels, I remember places based on food. But, as you grow up, you don't really realize that this is something that you can make a career out of. And I really didn't think that I would go into television. It all happened because I started my food delivery business back in 2014. And then I started getting all these inquiries about how do you make this recipe? How do you clean fish? And, I had all these questions from my customers. And then I thought, why don't I just put myself on TV and answer these questions so that, if one or two people are asking it and I'm also wondering sometimes, then what's the best way of doing it? Is just put yourself on TV. And that's when I entered Asian Food Hero Talent Search in 2015. And then I won, which was a shock because I never thought that I would get that far into the competition, let alone win. And I guess after that, a series of opportunities presented itself. So from being a Food Hero winner in 2015, obviously my food delivery business in Tiffin Carriers was expanding very quickly. And then I started up a social enterprise at that time called the Agak-Agak Initiative. And then we had the opportunity to open our first restaurant, which was very exciting. And at the same time, I was also shooting By the Sea with Ili, which is a show on Asian Food Network. And, a lot of things were happening at the same time. And, they say in your 20s, you have all the energy in the world to do whatever you want and, make the mistakes and learn. And that's exactly what I did. I threw myself into work without a blink of an eye, without even a pause. And then that's when I think things went a little bit south.
Was there like a breaking point for you?
I think it was multifaceted, and it started off with me feeling very tired, like just exhausted, working at the restaurant, I would come in a bit later, like at lunch service, but I would have been in the office from like 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. And then going to the restaurant and being there all day, and then till late at night, and then after finish work, hang out with your friends, or or just try and catch up with like your social life. And I was doing that constantly. And then if I am not at the restaurant or in KL, I would have been on shoots, and that would require traveling, right? So I would travel to Indonesia for shoots, or into Singapore, or when I was doing by the sea, I was in Thailand, in Vietnam. So a lot of traveling, a lot of different locations, and shooting, sometimes 10, 12 hours, 14 hours outdoors. By the sea was outdoors, in the hot sun, and at the same time coming back to the hotel room and replying emails, and still side hustling. So
Yeah.
I started seeing the exhaustion first. And then also I started losing a lot of hair. And then I started gaining weight. Even though I was really active, doing 10,000 steps a day on minimum, but I was gaining the weight, and I wasn't even changing anything I was eating. I was still eating the same food. And then my moods started to change. I started being very irritated and hot tempered, and I could feel myself be very unhappy. I was very unhappy. Yeah, so that's kind of like the tail signs.
I mean, I guess because some of the symptoms do sound a bit like burnout, which is probably, I think, what you were experiencing as well,
Correct.
right? So at what point did you say like, okay, I need help, it's not something that is sustainable anymore?
I think like I really didn't listen to my body at all. Yeah, it was burnout, and I thought, okay, this is burnout, because a lot, that was kind of like the buzzword that everybody was using as,
Yep.
entrepreneurs. Like everybody's like, okay, make sure that you don't burn out. And so I was like, okay, well, I feel like I am burning, or like, what is burning out? Like, is this feeling? And then what happened next was actually, I started kind of having issues with a lot of my friends, my very close circle of friends. There was a lot of, I guess, guilt on my side for not being as sociable as I used to be, or not be as dependable as I used to be. So there was a lot of friendship breakups that happened during this period of time as well, which affected me emotionally. So I guess the physical exhaustion came from work, and then the emotional exhaustion came from the friendship breakups. And this was like, this was the chemistry reaction that triggered the PCOS. So what happened next was my period stopped. This was early 2018. I was like, oof, like, this is weird, right?
Yep.
So I went and saw the gynecologist, and then, very simple question she asked me, how's my sleep? What brings you in? And then I told her my sleep is really bad, my periods are irregular. And she's like, have you put on weight? Because I go every year. So she sees me every year, and she saw that I've put on quite a bit of weight. So she's like, yes. She's like, I think you might have polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is PCOS. But let's take a blood test and see for sure. And then so we took a blood test, and then about 3 days later, she called me up and she said, please come in. I want to have a chat with you. And that was the first time I've ever heard about polycystic ovarian syndrome. I had no idea. And true enough, went in, and that's when she showed me the blood test results, and it was, insulin was super high. I think my insulin at that time was at around the 36, 38th percentile. So a normal insulin reading would be less than 10. So mine was about three to four times higher. And then she did a scan, and she saw little cysts on my uterus and ovary area. So she's like, okay, these are the signs of polycystic ovarian syndrome.
I think, like many young women, I don't think we know what exactly PCOS is, and the information around it maybe has gotten better over the years, and it's very new and very recent. So I think maybe could you tell us first, like, what exactly is PCOS? And you were mentioning certain symptoms that your doctor said were telltale signs that you had PCOS. So what are they?
The symptoms vary from cysts in your ovaries, which you can only tell via a scan, whether it's a vaginal scan or an ultrasound. period irregularities, hair loss or hair growth in sort of your chest area, your face area, weight gain, insulin. So insulin, whether your insulin is high or low. If your insulin is high. So these are some of the symptoms. There are many other symptoms, but these are the 5, I would say, main symptoms. If you have these symptoms, at least 3 of them, then you are diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. Now, polycystic ovarian syndrome, it is not a woman's fault, and I have to emphasize this. It's actually a genetic condition. So it's most likely your mother or your grandmother or someone in your dad's side of the family has it. So I just want to put a blanket there that if you guys are feeling like how I felt when I first found out that maybe I wasn't looking after myself, it's not your fault. It's actually genetics, and it stays dormant until something triggers it. So in my case, like I mentioned just now, it was exhaustion, physical exhaustion, and emotional stress that triggered my PCOS. I have a really good friend of mine who's didn't have PCOS until she had her second child. Really, it can happen to anybody. And some of the statistics, which is unfortunately we don't have the most current one in Malaysia. The last kind of journal that I read that calculated how many women actually have it in Malaysia is 1 out of 10 women in Malaysia. So this is like based in the early 90s. So we need some funding to do some more research on this, especially in Southeast Asia. But 1 in 10 in 1990 is still very high. I can imagine the numbers now. And another thing that is also very worrying is polycystic ovarian syndrome. In some women, 50% of the time, they don't even have symptoms.
And I mean, not reasonably so, because every woman is different, right? So different triggers could result in like different changes to the body, and then I think it's very difficult to say. But I think you shared a very interesting anecdote, which was that after you were diagnosed with your PCOS, you actually developed endometriosis. So tell me a bit more about that, because in the first place, how is it possible that somebody could end up getting both?
Yeah. I don't know. I have actually 3. So it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. I have endometriosis, and because of my PCOS, I also have a thyroid deficiency.
Hormonal.
Yeah. It's no wonder I was going crazy. Right. So with endometriosis, like I was only diagnosed in October of last year, and the reason why I was diagnosed with it is because I started having these really severe pains during my period all of a sudden. So once I got so let's rewind a little bit. So once I got diagnosed, I was put on metformin for 3 months. My period started becoming regular, and I started looking after myself. I wouldn't say that I was being great about it. I tried, because I was still learning about my condition. And then suddenly, like last year, my period started being a little bit more heavier and very painful. And then it would got to the point where even when I was not having my period, or I would cough or be a little bit, if I was exerting myself a little bit more, I would have these sharp pains. And I was like, okay, wait, this is weird. Right? This is not cool, right? So I was due for a checkup anyway. So I went and I saw a different gynecologist. So went to see her, and then she's like, oh, I can see that this is why you're having lots of pain. So basically, my ovaries, I have all these little cysts, which is the polycystic ovarian syndrome. Very, very normal. And then there was this monster. It was an endometriosis. And the way you can tell the difference is PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, the cysts are white in color under the scan. With endometriosis, it's black, which means that there is so it's like a fluid that is blood fluid that has created kind of like a cyst on any part of your uterus. So the difference is with PCOS is a hormone imbalance, right? So the insulin, okay, the perfect way of describing it is if you look at a cup, okay, you have a cup. Your mother, which is your brain, is telling you to put the syrup, sugar, insulin, into the cup, okay? So your body is trying to put the syrup into the cup, but it's not going in, it's spilling out. So your mother is keeping telling you, why are you not filling the cup with syrup? I'm telling you to fill it up with cup with syrup. So what happens is all the insulin goes all around your body and then it gets stuck into your uterus, basically lah. I'm trying to describe it in a way that it's not scientific so people get it. So what happens is then the insulin, it's not metabolized, and that's why you gain weight, and that's why you get these cysts, okay? Whereas in endometriosis, what happens is that thickening of the lining creates, it doesn't completely clear out, and there is a growth that gets stuck there, basically. And every month that you have your period, it just grows and grows. I don't know, I haven't read much about endometriosis and the reasoning behind this, but that's what was explained to me by my doctor. So my endometriosis was, I guess, quite small, maybe in the beginning of last year. And then I guess with stress of work and, and just like I was starting to really take care of myself, but it was hard for me to let go of work and things like that, and personal things that was going on in my life as well. So I guess because of that, the endometriosis started growing, and that's when I started having those pains. And with endometriosis, for as long as you have your period, it will always come back.
That's something I just read also, because I think I was trying to understand endometriosis, and they said that it develops several years after women get, or people who have the female reproductive system start their menstruation, right?
Correct.
And I was also reading that I think the causes are currently unclear, but and this is something that you shared also, if it's in your family history, then the chances of you getting it is increased as well.
Yep, correct. Yeah. So for me personally, like my endometriosis, like was I was hurting. I saw the guy. It was very fast. So I was hurting August and September. October, end of September, I saw my gynecologist. October, she diagnosed me. And then in December, I had it removed. And then I really had to have a really honest conversation with myself, and was like, I had a show that was supposed to schedule to be shot in December. I cancelled it because I was like, look, I got to be real about how I'm doing, if I go on like this, it's going to kill me literally, because I'll be in so much pain, I'll be miserable. I want to live life, life's too short. If anything COVID has taught me, it's just like life is too short. So, and it's a serious thing, because it affects your, like, as women, right? When you have endo and you have PCOS, and you're trying to function as a human being, you're trying to do your best at work, at home, with you. I'm a wife now, as a daughter-in-law, as a daughter, as a friend. But inside, you are, your hormones are all over the place, you're in pain. Once a month you struggle for like 10 days, you were like completely out of it, you can't move. It makes it really hard emotionally, and physically and mentally. It's not great, to be in that condition. So I just had to put a stop to it, and I just told myself, like, look, you need to look after yourself. And that's exactly what I did. I stopped work. I told myself I'm just going to focus on the things that make me happy, which are my passion for entrepreneurship. So I had to do one business. So I just focused on one. And then I just focused on my shows, and doing things like this, being an advocate for polycystic ovarian syndrome, and being open about talking about women health and periods and bleeding, and going to the gynecologist and not being ashamed, and being comfortable in your own skin. Because for so long, like I had no idea, that this could all happen to me. I was completely oblivious. So yeah, that's basically my agenda now.
We're taking a short break. Something Private is a podcast produced under media publisher Our Grandfather's Story. Watch our new episodes every alternate Tuesdays on YouTube and listen to us on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcast every alternate Thursdays. New episodes will be published first on YouTube and we'll be publishing once every 2 weeks this season. We've also just launched our new website, so pay us a visit at somethingprivate.fm if you'd like to share your story with us or work with us. Otherwise, you can send us a message on Instagram at somethingprivatepod or email us at nicole@somethingprivate.fm. We're immensely grateful for all the support you guys have given us, and we really couldn't have come this far without you. If you'd like to keep supporting our work, become our Patreon at patreon.com/somethingprivatepod. That's patreon.com/somethingprivatepod. Now back to the episode. I think one thing that really struck me about you was that you were very open, you're very honest, very candid about sharing about the condition in a way that was very unfiltered. So there were pictures of, you posted pictures of yourself in the hospital, you had, live videos of yourself answering questions, Instagram lives, you talked about your hair loss. All these conditions are, things that would typically be seen as, I would say, unwomanly, unglamorous, things that women hope doesn't happen to them, and yet you were very candid about sharing about it. So I'm wondering, and also I think with the whole element of when you got your endometriosis, the aspect of recognizing that the pain is unbearable and I need to go and seek help, because I think that a lot of times as women, you are told that you will get menstrual cramps, right? And you're like, okay, just tahan the menstrual cramp. You will get better like over a couple of days. Take a Panadol. And so I'm wondering, what makes you want to show this side to your followers or to the rest of the world? And what do you hope to achieve from it?
I mean, ever since I started sharing about my journey about PCOS, I've been getting so many DMs. You have no idea, and it's really sad because we have a culture of like, oh, we have to show a front, that we're successful, we are happy, we are, we have everything sorted and we look a certain way, and that's BS. Let's just be real about it, because not everything is perfect, and I guess when I started talking about it and I started getting a lot of these messages from women who are young, who have no idea about women's health, and they think from hearing what I say and talking about my symptoms, they think that, oh, maybe they might have what I'm having, which explains a lot. And then I have a lot of DMs from women who are nutritionists and doctors, and telling me, encouraging me, and sending me books and sending me articles for me to read, to women who have struggled all of their life knowing that they have endometriosis and PCOS, and then, now in their menopausal stage, also sharing their journey, of and also, of course, the stories of the social aspects of it. So you have this disease that affects women, but you also have the social stigma that is affected with women with PCOS, because there is a big misconception that women who have PCOS can't get pregnant, and so I have a lot of stories about families being torn apart because she can't bear children, and being outcast, by the in-laws. So I just want to create a voice, because I have nothing to lose, I have a very supportive husband, a very supportive family, an awesome doctor who is so encouraging. She actually called me yesterday and was like, oh, you need to get on this thing, So, and I have a really awesome support group, which I've started with 2 other women who are sufferers of PCOS. Dina, who was diagnosed with PCOS at the age of 17. She's now, I think, in her early 30s. And Stephanie, who is a pharmacist. and she's the friend that I said that only was diagnosed with PCOS after her second child. So the three of us are starting. Well, Dina is heading it, and we are kind of like helping her with the content called My PCOS I Love You. And basically, what it says is what it is. My PCOS I love you. You don't need to hate it. You just need to understand it. And we are going to be talking about all the icky, yucky stuff that you probably won't hear from your gynecologist or even some of your girlfriends, but you can have that frank conversation with us. And there is a need for it, you know. Sometimes even talking about your menstrual cycle. You know, there's so many words for period, right? Menstrual cycle lah, period lah, height lah, MC lah. I've heard the works. So it's like, yeah, shark lah. You know, so there is like, why is there so many covers for something that women have been having from the beginning of time? Why are we still hiding behind this, you know? And I just wish that, you know, someone like my mom, who probably has polycystic ovarian syndrome and never knew that she had polycystic ovarian syndrome, and who has been struggling with depression and weight gain all of her life, for me to then get it at 36 years old and then go to my mom and be like, Mom, I'm so sorry, and now I understand the pain that you have been going through all your life. You know? And she had no idea until I got it, until I was diagnosed. So I don't want that to happen. I don't want women to go through their life feeling bad for the way they feel, feeling ashamed for not being able to do certain things that society requires you to do, or whatever it is. I want it all to stop. It's the fact that I don't want people to have to go through their life not knowing and thinking that it's their fault, that there's something wrong with them. And yes, there is something wrong with you, and you can fix it, you can manage it, and there's a way to do it. So that is why, you know, we created My PCOS I Love You, because we want to have these honest conversations, and I'm an advocate for it.
I want to know if, in sharing your story, has there been any backlash? Because I would assume that maybe more conservative factions of society might find it taboo to talk about anything related to your reproductive system, right? I'm wondering if there's anybody that has called you out for it, or any negative reactions that you have received.
I mean, the only negative thing that I've ever gotten is people have said that I have used my PCOS as a reason to not participate or get involved or to stop something. And I guess it's with a lot of illnesses that you possibly cannot see, because with PCOS, right, it's very internal.
Yep.
It's a emotional condition. It's a hormonal condition. It's not like you're bleeding and somebody can see a band-aid, you know what I mean? It's a mental health condition. So it's like, so because there's not a lot of knowledge around it, there is not a lot of talk around it, there's not a lot of awareness, that a lot of people think that I am using that as an excuse to get out of things. And I know for a fact that a lot of women who struggle with PCOS and sometimes, or endometriosis, and sometimes they need to take that day off or that 2 days off, their bosses are probably thinking that, you know, they are just faffing around and taking, you know, advantage. But it's not. It's an actual disease, and it's something that needs to be treated with respect, like all the other diseases. And the scary part is it affects a lot of women. So people just better watch out, because their moms might have it, their sisters might have it, you know what I mean? Their grandmothers might have it. So it's something that yes, it's taboo, but I haven't gotten any backlash. Actually, a matter of fact, I do get a lot of messages from men who message me and say, you know, Ili, like, Thank you so much for sharing your story. My wife is going through what you're going through, and I just want to say thank you for your content. I had someone who messaged me, a husband who messaged me and said, my wife is going in to remove, she doesn't have endometriosis, she has ado, another condition where it's really severe that you have to remove your uterus. And, watching your videos together has really encouraged us to stay positive, and things like that. So, if anything, no. And if anyone want to say anything to me, I'll just block. Because look, I don't need that negativity when I'm trying to help others. So yeah,
It's true.
if you
Nobody
can't
has
deal with
time
it,
for that.
there's
Yep.
you can move away from my page. It's okay.
Yep. I wanted to add on to the point that you mentioned at the beginning that you have a gynecologist that you regularly visit, right? But I think that for a lot of women who are not expecting, having a gynecologist is very rare. Like nobody's like,
Correct.
oh, I'm having cramps. This is happening to me. I'm going to pay my gynecologist a visit. Like, how people would pay their dentist a visit every like maybe 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't happen for women's health. So
Yeah.
I think it's a huge thing that has to be changed. And even myself also, I don't do it because I never grew up knowing that this was necessary, right? This is an element of my health that I have to pay more attention to. So yeah, I think it's a big issue.
No, and I think you brought a very interesting point here because look, like the minute you have your period, right? You have to start going to see a gynecologist. Maybe not in your early teens, maybe you can do once every 2 years, but once you hit your 20s. So my gynecologist explained to me that your body changes every 7 years. Okay. So when you're 17, you're 14, you're 21, 28, and so on and so forth. So when your body changes, things change, right? Your hormones change, your body changes, your cycle changes. So you do need to literally do a check-in with your women bits, and there's a lot of shame about going to see a gynecologist because you are not married. Why? A gynecologist is a doctor. There is a thing called privacy between, there is a thing called where when you go see a doctor, whatever that is discussed, whatever that is checked on is between you and your doctor. But I guess, coming from an Asian culture, that it's not something like you said, like you grew up knowing that, oh, your mom would say openly, I'm going to go to see the gynecologist, right? Correct? You would hardly see that, but your mom would tell you she's going to go see the dentist. But she will never say that I'm going to go see my gynecologist. And, I don't understand why. If you can go and check your teeth every 6 months to 9 months, why can't you go and see the gynecologist? So, I mean, I come from I would say, a fairly open family. And my dad grew up with women around him. So I never felt ashamed to tell my dad, like, I've got my period, like, don't bother me. But I know a lot of households don't have that openness, right? So me being an advocate and talking about periods and talking about polycystic ovarian syndrome is trying to get my peers who are now bearing children of their own to start having that conversation with their little ones, when as they are developing and growing and being open about their bits, and it's very important.
And I want to talk a bit about your experiences and your relationship with like your followers, because I think that it's quite special, something that you share with them. Are there any stories from women that has stuck with you, or stood out that you thought was interesting or very moving, that you feel like you can share?
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of okay, so I would categorize them in these I guess categories lah. So you have the family members who have women in their life who suffer from polycystic ovarian syndrome, and then those are like the men, which I think are really sweet, for them to like reach
Yeah.
out to me and be like, hey, by the way, what you're doing is awesome. Then we also have like I would say the really tragic stories that have the social stigma to it. So I have women who message me and say, um, you know, I think I have polycystic ovarian syndrome, but I'm too ashamed to go to the doctor because, I've had sexual encounters before and I'm not married and I don't want the gynecologist to know, or judge me, which is so sad, and they beat themselves up because, you know, they had sex out of marriage, and now because they are suffering, they cannot go and see a doctor to be able to find the reasons behind their suffering. You get what I mean? Which is very heavy for me, and this is why like a lot of young women probably find it very open to speak to me, and I'll find them the right doctors that they can go to without any judgment. And then you also have the really sad stories of, like, like I mentioned before, like families being torn apart because I can't bear children. I've been trying for 12 years. And, my in-laws don't talk to me anymore. My sister-in-law, nobody on my husband's side talks to me anymore. So we have had to move states. So, these are the kind of stories that are shared with me. And it just really does inspire me and keep me going.
I feel a lot for, I think, the women who come to you and share that they had sex outside of marriage and they cannot approach a gynecologist for help. I'm wondering if this is a common thing that you experience, or yeah.
Yeah, I guess yeah, it's a very common thing. And, like, sex is such a shameful thing, and it's like, it's something that is done in the dark, and, behind closed doors, nobody talks about it, like it's just such a taboo. But it's a very natural thing,
Yep.
like and I guess when you put religion into the context of it, then it becomes complicated,
Yep.
and then you put the Asian culture into it, then it becomes even more complicated. So when it's actually a very natural thing. And, my advice to that particular person who messaged me was, look, find a doctor that understands you. Don't go to a gynecologist that makes you feel uncomfortable. If you make an appointment to see a gynecologist, and, listen to your inner instinct. As a woman, we have that sixth sense, right? If you go into a gynecologist clinic and you feel instantly uncomfortable and you feel like you've been judged, walk out. Find another one. Don't give up. You know what I mean? So use that instinct to find the right doctor for yourself. And, that was the best advice I could give her. And I said, because I don't judge you, but I cannot control what other people do, but you can control who you want to see, right? Who will make you feel comfortable. And that's just it. And I guess, like I said, I cannot change my parents' views on all this, but I can try and encourage openness and discussions among my peers who are having children now, to have these frank conversations about health, especially if they're having girls,
I think yeah, it's absolutely right. I feel like it's difficult to tell her. I mean, I think the best thing we can do is to provide that kind of support and to let her know that there is a community out there that's behind her, no matter
Yes.
what. Yeah, to wrap up the conversation on your journey with endometriosis and PCOS, I'm wondering where are you now in terms of like your health and like taking care of it? Yeah.
So I'm still trying to figure it out, to be honest. And but what I have done is, after my endometriosis surgery, I really cut down on work. So I'm very picky about the type of work I want to do, and the hours I do, and I'm focusing more on myself. I call it like self-kindness, just be kind to myself. So I've completely changed the way I eat now, so I don't eat any more processed food. I cook everything at home because I have more time for myself, so that's what I do. And I do a little bit of workout. I try and do every day, but sometimes I just want to nap, and it's okay, I just nap. um and yeah, just trying to have a wholesome, holistic life.
What are some pieces of advice that you would give, I guess, to yourself back then and to anybody who's maybe struggling or facing similar struggles that you might have gone through?
Oh, wow. um And to be honest, I wouldn't have changed anything. I really wouldn't change even the burnout and the emotional breakups and all that kind of stuff. Like, I wouldn't change anything because it has made me who I am today. So I always say, like, in your 20s, like, I still stand by this. Like, live in a foreign country, explore the world, make mistakes, get your heart broken, and like really indulge in life, because it will propel you in your 30s to make the right decisions for yourself. It might take some time. Like, for me, it took a bit of time, but I feel like now I am more cautious about saying no. So, like, in my 20s, if I said no, I'll feel guilty 90%, and 10% I'll feel relief. Now I feel guilty 10% and 90% relief. So because I have truly lived life, I lived in the UK, I lived in London, I traveled, I broke up with my 7-year relationship with my ex. I started a business. I went on TV. Like, I have no regrets, and that is me living life to the fullest. I think maybe too full, to the point when I had an emotional breakdown. But the thing is, maybe my strength is different in the sense that I am able to crawl out of it, um, and become a better person, I hope, from it. But I always encourage it people. I always encourage young people when I meet them to just live your life in your 20s, and just like do what you got to do. And then in your 30s, that's when you got to take things a little bit more seriously. And yeah, and then that's when your health also will start dwindling. And then you're like, alamak, yeah, I better start looking after myself. Maybe the last thing I want to add is that if you are if you think that you know someone, or you think that you have polycystic ovarian syndrome, or you're struggling with endometriosis, and you have all these burning questions, like, you can always just ask me. Like, I might not have all the answers, but I might be able to push you to the right direction. And yeah, let's talk about women's health more, and let's have more conversations about it, men and women, because it affects us all.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode with Ili. We hope you guys have learned something new. If these symptoms that we addressed in the episode are things that you identify with, have gone through yourself, don't suffer in silence. Please go and seek help from a medical professional, doctor, talk to your friends, your families. If you are somebody who has experienced PCOS or endometriosis and are keen and eager to share your story with us, we have a new website. You can drop us your story on our community tab on somethingprivate.fm. Otherwise, feel free to slide into our DMs at somethingprivatepod on Instagram, or email us at nicole@somethingprivate.fm. We are releasing new episodes once every 2 weeks from now onwards, so I will see you guys in 2 weeks.